So this is a question from a while ago. Okay, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to read the question word for word. Something along the lines of the Aztecs, and what about the Aztecs, and this and that, and how can I say the Aztecs are primarily mestizo people when they're the base of the word Mexico is Mexica, which is, which they said are the, don't know if, I want to say, I think it was Mayans though, I want to say Aztecs, but I think it was Mayans, which Mayans, it wouldn't be the case. And not even for Aztecs, they were a base group of people for the Aztecs, basically where the Aztecs came, the people group the Aztecs came out of. So, Aztec is like Byzantine, it's a fairly modern term. It's actually later than the term Byzantine, because Byzantine came about 100 years earlier. Aztecs came probably around 1874, I think it was. It was actually a British guy who came up with that name. Not 100% sure on that, but okay, the origins of the Aztecs. Since I can't even look at the question or pull up another page, I'm not going to be able to. Well, here it goes. The Aztecs, yeah, they emerged from a people. Okay, well, let me answer the initial question. No, just because that's the area of Illinois, the Illini, all right? But yet there were Miami, Potawatomi, Menominee, and Miami, Illini, Potawatomi, and Menominee. All right, and the Menominee now are recognized. They have their own nation of people, but they're also recognized under the Potawatomi people too, which the Potawatomi were a group of High Plains Algonquins. Those were all in Illinois. The Miami, the Illini. I don't know why the city of Miami is named Miami. There are no Seminoles down there. But the state is called Illinois, and there's the colonizers were the French, the English, and the Native Americans. These are the people that named everything up here that left their mark on the land. Now there's after the flight of the South, there's Black Americans, there's Italians, Greeks, Serbs, all types of Slavs, a lot of Mexicans up here, Irish, I want to say Italians, Greeks, people from all over that live here, born in this state, but from different areas. It's not just French, English, and Illini, and certainly there's Potawatomi left here, and Menominee. So, no, it's not, that's like saying, oh, well, a lot of people in Illinois are Roman Catholics, and the majority of them are Christians, so the Illini must have been Christians, right? No, it doesn't work like that. The Mexico were this group, basically the people that rose out of the Mexico we refer to as Aztecs, and that was the modern civilization in charge at the time when Cortez smacked into Mexico, into the Yucatan or Mesoamerica, or the isthmus between northern Mexico and what will be Colombia. So this isthmus of people, and there wasn't such a distinction between what's now Belize, Guatemala, and southern Mexico. So you have about a few hundred years before the Spanish smacked into the area. Let's go way back. For thousands of years ago, there were groups of people like the Zapotecs, the Olmecs, the people that carved the big head, and then you get this period known as the Mayans, which is again a general term. Um, and the Mayans went through these periods of having to redo the dates for them because they realized the stuff is much ancient. Again, different civilizations rise up, Kalima, stuff like this. So Maya, it tends to be a very loose term, as they all are, since many of them didn't have form of writing, although some did. The Mayans built these pyramids, and there's a very distinct difference between the Mayan pyramids and the Aztec pyramids. So easy to spot. And then the very cool pyramids of Teotihuacan, which have been called Toltecs for a while. Most of the time people now just call them Teotihuacanes, or it's the civilization, not Teotihuacan, but Toltec civilization. It's distinct enough to give them their own name, Toltec, and not group them in with everything else. The Mayan civilization, what we know the Mayan as these 40 states, which in the 60s they thought it was very peaceful, like a more communist, but they find out, because we discovered, we cracked their writing system, that they were a warrior culture. Surprise, surprise. These people were not sissies. There was this view in the 60s that Native Americans would cry when garbage hits the road, and they even called them a noble savage, which is a throwback to Thoreau, and a very, very white man's burden, trying to pat the little brown people on their head. Very racist type of crap that they were doing. Whether they were well intended or not, it was still a more of those beautiful little people they weren't corrupted by civilization or technology, right? Well, we find out they have pretty complex mathematics. Enough for any Stone Age civilization. We know that Stone Age people had, they were just as developed as we are. They're not like, like grunting and, a bunch of, they were people. But you had this collapse happen. Nobody knows why. More peculiarly, the people who add to this kind of mythos of where these people come from are the Teotihuacanes, which actually rebelled against their own civilization and walked back into the wilderness. I don't say jungle, I say wilderness. They forsook their own thing. They can tell from the buildings and the pictures and writings. They dig up a lot of. People know pretty much about Teotihuacan that it was a very state. It was almost like Sparta. It was very state controlled and very state run, of almost like brainwashing them into this. The state is everything. Die for the state. And just like Sparta, or communist Russia, or any place that put too much emphasis on this, and basically almost a religion, an anti-religion that's a religion almost. It was very strange. It's a very cool thing. I love learning about. I wish I'm making it a point to actually go down and see places like Chichen Itza, which were Mayan, and Teotihuacan. I have to say, those places, they're awesome. I think that's some of the coolest buildings. But there's two theories about the Aztecs. One we know is almost, it's demonstrably false, although it gets repeated. One of them, the first one, the most likely one, is that a group of priests from Teotihuacan took their math skills and basically settled as a people that became the Aztecs, and they settled on the outskirts of this lake. They were given permission by the Tepanecs to settle there. And, well, I'll tell you the complete story. And these people, these Aztec people, didn't have much power, so to gain power, they set up a wedding with the Tepanecs royal family. So the Tepanecs king married his daughter off to the Aztecs, and the Aztecs priests led her up a pyramid, a Mayan, these leftover pyramids from these people, like, kind of dispersed into the surrounding areas. They didn't totally forget about this stuff, but these weren't active use anymore. And they ripped her heart out, and they filleted her skin. And at the wedding banquet, just as they were going to present, they're supposed to present the bride and the groom, basically. The Tepanex king was sitting there, and a Aztec priest came out dancing around in the flayed skin of the king's daughter. So they chased him out into this muddy swamp on this kind of half-assed marshy island. You know, they were trying to wipe him out. And fuck, these people are nuts. They're lunatics. They're bloodthirsty. Chased him out in the middle of this lake. They were there for safety, but it wasn't a very nice place to live. But they would build off of that eventually, and after generations, they wound up striking out and fighting the Tepanex, which the Tepanex should not have ignored the Aztecs, because in them ignoring them, which this can be a lesson to all peoples, the Aztecs came back even more powerful, and they wound up subduing the Tepanex. And now, as one of the Aztec peoples, we call the Tepanex today Aztec, although if the Tepanex knew we were relating them to these people, they would be wicked pissed. And eventually, their main city was built on this place called this island, this boggy swamp. Actually, the thing now is more like a chain of islands in this very boggy, marshy swamp, which is Mexico City of today. But back then it was Teochtitlan, where they actually started, after they had conquered these areas, they had started filling it in and building this huge pyramid complex. And that was the base city. And then I believe Tula was the other one. It was Triple Alliance. There were 3 cities. I can't click over it to look. I didn't even look anything up on Wikipedia. A source that I won't rely off of when I'm making a video, only if I'm giving something very general. But I'd always loved Mesoamerican stuff, so I always would research it avidly, or rabidly, depending on which way I want to put it. So you had the Aztecs, who had built this city, but they had to build their pyramids differently from everybody else. They have a distinct look. And the reason why this Teotihuacan priest theory emerged is because their pyramids look halfway in between the Mayan and the Teotihuacanes, Teotihuacan priests coming down, becoming Aztecs. And because the Aztecs always had an affinity, they believed that there was a place where giants used to live. And I believe Teotihuacan became one of the major. I think it was Teotihuacan, Tenochtitlan, and Tula. Although I'm not sure about Teotihuacan, because that was a sacred place for them. They really this was like holy ground for them, Teotihuacan. So they made sure not to build anything or anything like that to disturb the gods. And there are some people like to cast doubt on how many sacrifices they had a day, but the records show that it easily could have been done, and they've even done test models with anatomically correct dummies that are actually rib cages, ballistic gel, the skin, everything, and you could tear someone's heart out that quick. And they did this. They were experts at basically manufacturing death, because they believed for the sun to rise. It's been thought for a long time that in their games, which people say, oh, they invented soccer or they invented basketball. Well, they had a version of the sport, but soccer or football and comes from around Virginia. The Native Americans, they chop off the head of somebody, an enemy warrior, and then they'd kick it around. And that's the base of lacrosse, which is the base of hockey. And the English turned it into a pig's bladder, since they thought that was too barbaric, and that became football. And then basketball wasn't developed until the 20th century. So, but they would sacrifice the winning team as the highest honor. That theory is starting to change a little bit. I think maybe now it's the losing team. But for a long time it's the winning team. So it's still up on there. Both theories are valid. The other thing is that they came from this mythical land called Aztlan. Oh yeah, and that language they spoke, which is, there's still extreme minority of people, the Nahuatl, or Nahuatl, Nahautl, I believe it is. Again, could be wrong on that. those are the people usually called Aztecs or the descendants of the Aztecs today. Although it's just a language group of people who, even when they expand that out, it doesn't quite fit into the what we call Aztec in Nahuatl. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Linguistic area, which again is not by any means all of Mexico. Well, okay, the Aztecs, why did they fall? Well, one was pestilence. One was the fact Spanish came over and was pestilence. Second thing is that the Spanish came over here and were appalled at the fact they were ripping people's hearts out, that they had huge pens of skulls. And the third is that the Mayans were primarily the victims of the Aztecs, and that is that they actually helped the Aztecs overthrow, or they helped the Spanish overthrow the Aztecs. And the fourth was Montezuma II, who was no Moctezuma I, who was a warrior, and he wasn't like his older brother either. He was from priestly background, so he let the Spanish in when his brother said, "We kill these guys. Let's just kill them right now. This is not good." He was an Aztec warrior. They betrayed like 17 cities. Why are you letting these people into the heart of our land? This is stupid. Kill them. We can kill them right now. We can kill them right now. I mean, there's so many times when the Aztecs could have just snapped the Spanish. But no, that didn't happen. And they kind of crumbled a lot quicker than if they went up against in an army, and they could have actually probably staved off the Spanish for many years, and through trading with other peoples, they could have gotten, weapons, which would have Europeanized them just as fast. But Europe had been connected with Asia, the Middle East, and Africa for millennia. So the diseases that cycled through there, they wanted to becoming immune to it through natural selection. The Native Americans didn't have this power, and I mean, vast swaths of them died. I mean, just hundreds. I mean, there's no even records for it. Hundreds of, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of people just boom dead, which broke the back of any type of resistance whatsoever. I mean, it wasn't even intentional. Not to mention the different chickens and cows and grain and stuff like that they had never experienced. So they were gone. But okay, what's the other story? The other story is they came from this place, Aztlan, which was north of the Mexican Valley of Mexico or whatever, which is again a loose translation, which was probably the Valley of Oaxaca. And so it was north of there. Well, Teotihuacan lies north of there, so that's pointing to there. Now, some people said, oh, they may be from the Four Corners, because the Four Corner people sharpened their teeth down and were known for cannibalism. These people why the Anasazis disappeared and why the Pueblo emerged from these marauding, vicious people. So it's still a view of the Aztecs are extremely vicious and bloodthirsty. But even then, it doesn't pan out. That this Aztlan, which is from a later mythical tradition, if it was anything, it was people Mexicans, not Mexicans, the Aztecs, or a people group related to the Aztecs, moving up, because we see a totally different culture there for a long period of time, and then boom, massive cannibalism, the sharpening of teeth, and these people who then had to form what's called the Pueblo people, living on the sides of cliffs, almost constantly guarding against massive invasion. And then the weather changed, so they dropped back south, which is now pretty much the accepted view. And a time period that was really early, too. It wasn't... so the Mexica, or the Aztecs, that language group is probably a lot older than people think. I really believe that a lot of this stuff is a lot older than most think. I don't know why they put it. Well, I do know why, because you've got to be critical in the stuff. You can't just make stuff up. So there's the legend that they came from there, but it's not particularly there. That's just British and American scientists then thinking, oh, because the Aztecs were so violent and they were cannibalistic and they would have done stuff like this. But the evidence even shows that it was a people coming from the south into the north, and then basically coming back after they couldn't conquer anymore, or basically raid. and it might have even been an enemy of Teotihuacan when it expanded and pushed these more violent people up north. Whether the Aztecs have any connection to them or not, we don't know. Whether that actually is Aztlan, which is a rapidly diminishing theory, it can't be said for certain. But the Aztecs didn't, eventually, hundreds of years later, didn't like the story of the Tepanecs, of them, butchering the Tepanecs princess and them getting their asses handed to them in a high hat, pushed out onto this fucking swamp, So they said, oh, it was a vision of a cactus and an eagle eating a snake on an island, and which, if you just go through the flora and fauna, what would grow there, it's actually could not be the case. But those, again, even modern day people are saying, no, those are symbols, and that actually that dream means much more than an eagle, a cactus, and a snake on an island. That it actually means much. These are actually potent symbols, and that they would have known, they would have translated that in their own time, and that it wasn't this thing. Again, does that mean that legend shouldn't be taught? No, absolutely it should be taught. Just like Romulus and Remus, descendants of Troy, raised by a she-wolf that started Rome. So I'm not saying that's bad or stupid, or that's part of the heritage. Keep that around. Good, fine, Instead of saying, like, that's better than the Italians saying, like, oh, yeah, the Etruscans kind of kicked the shit out of us for a long time, and then the Greeks kind of did, and then the Etruscans came back again, and then we had to throw them off, but we pretty much bought them off for a while, and then we didn't want to pay them, so then we fought Tarquinius Superbus, and, and even the name Italy comes from the Etruscan princess Thalia, which, So the Romans didn't like that, so they had Romulus and Remus, and they were connected to Troy because they fought the Greeks too, which there's probably some truth to that. And just like the Aztecs having to push out onto an island, they got pushed out onto an island. They went there, so it's not a literal telling of the story, but it's one that makes them save face, as if the Tepanecs didn't just push them off. So these are the base stories of the Aztecs, and I don't know why people have to choose between. And then, of course, in the north, you had different groups come down. You had eventually the people known as the Navajo would get pushed down in there, and then the Apache, which were living in the volcanic areas, which fought the Mexicans and the Americans, were a different people group from the Navajo, which were a different people group from the Aztecs, which were a different people group from the Maya, which were a different, these are not the same people groups. This is multi-ethnic land that got encompassed in there. Just like the Navajo aren't the Hurons, which aren't the Potawatomi, which aren't the Nez Perce, which, aren't the Fox, which aren't the Seminole, which aren't the, you can just keep going on, which aren't the Miami, which aren't the Creek, which aren't the Illini, which aren't the, it's just like Europe, multinational people. Even in some countries, there's multi-nations. Ethnicities, meaning, not multi. But I look at the story of Mexico and its emergence as Spain finishing the Reconquista, the Spanish being Latins descended from Central Italians, which are had the Caesars and all that, and the Republic. So you have this ancient great warrior empire crashing into another ancient great warrior empire. So they have both of the best bloods in them. I don't know why there needs to be a separation out. And obviously it is now, there's Latin blood strewn through all there, and it's probably dominant because people who didn't have resistance to it died. And the Mayans reject that the modern day Mayans won't call themselves Mexican, Hispanic, or Latino. Same with the people who speak Nahuatl, or however it's pronounced. There was even a court case where a judge ordered a woman to learn English, and people got up in arms until they realized she couldn't even speak Spanish. She spoke a a form of this Native American language that nothing was in. She came here because she wanted asylum from Mexico, because the Mexicans are really the Mexican government's really screwing over these people in a bad way. The Mayans can speak majority of them do know Spanish, but they still reject the Mexican government, which is the Zapatista conflict. I could even go into that, which I did in one video. But I see it as two great warrior cultures clashing. So they're Hispanic, they do have Latin blood in them from Spain and then Italy, being their ancestral peninsula being Italy. But there's also, who's to say who's an Aztec, who has Aztec blood. They're not Aztecs, they're Mexicans. They're not Mayans, they're Mexicans. We know who the Aztecs are down there. We know who the Mayans are down there. And why should you have to make a difference of, oh, these people are part Mayan and part Hispanic, or part Aztec and part Latino, and in the north it's Navajo, it's different people, part Navajo and part Latino, and these people may be some Apache and part Latino. I mean, I don't see the reason for picking this apart. I think that's kind of sick. I think Mexico is Mexico, and people should work together. And then, of course, obviously, there's Arabs, there's Polish, there's Irish. There's people who are 100% Irish that are there. There's people 100% Polish that are there. That group RBD, she had one Polish girl who's in there. Are they not Mexicans? Yeah, they are, because Mexico's a nation state. It's not a race. And even Mexicans are. I mean, because what ratio would you use? I mean, you could say mestizos, which would be the vast majority. And then what do you do about people who might be 100% Mayan but are not of Mayan culture? So they wouldn't be Latino, but they'd be of the Hispanic culture. So I'm going to send this to the person that sent me that message. It's good to learn who you are and where you come from. I love learning about Mesoamerican culture and stuff like this. I have many artifacts that are from there. But the getting up in arms and trying to say, oh, Oaxaca is real and Jalisco is real, which Jalisco has so many European immigrants there. Oh, but Durango isn't, and Juarez isn't, and I don't even think this person's Mexican, because they talk about the Northerners and the Southerners, which are gangs in California, Sureños and Norteños, which denote Northern Mexico or Northern California and Southern Mexico, or Southern California, not Northern Mexico and Southern Mexico. So Norteños and Sureños refer to the gang division of California, not Mexico. Yeah, there was some mistakes. I wish I could read it out, but so that's the history and the origins of the Aztecs. Peace to you. Take it easy. May God save Serbia and Syria. And if you are Mexican descent of any form, be very, very proud of who you are and where you came from. Take it easy. Oh yeah, the codices, the Mendoza codices and the Rios codices aren't as accurate because they were written after the Spanish conquest under the control of the Spanish. The Dresden Codex, which is where Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, all that stuff, was pre-Spanish. So that's usually they believe that one to be more reliable because they didn't have Catholic priests watching over their shoulders with the conquistador putting a spear at their neck, making sure they didn't write anything too radical. So the Spanish were big at burning codices, so they like to forge their own. And the ones that actually were safe are the ones that were in Europe, that were out of the hands of the Spanish, the ones that wound up in Germany and in the northern parts, because well, they were in conflict with Spain. Spain was the biggest and baddest dog on the block. Nobody liked them. They were one of I think the biggest empire on the face of the earth was the Spanish Empire. Alright, take it easy. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. But this state is called Illinois, and there's the colonizers were the French, the English, and the Native Americans. These are the people that named everything up here, that left their mark on the land. Now there's, after the flight of the South, there's Black Americans, there's Italians, Greeks, Serbs, all types of Slavs, a lot of Mexicans up here, Irish, I want to say Italians, Greeks, people from all over that live here, born in this state, but from different areas. Uh, it's not just French, English, and Illini, and certainly there's Potawatomi left here and Menominee. So no, it's not. Oh, I could. That's like. Well, here it goes. The Aztecs, yeah, they emerged from a people. Okay, well, let me answer the initial question. No, just because that's the area of Illinois, the Illini, all right. But yet there were Miami, Potawatomi, Menominee, and yeah, Miami, Illini, Potawatomi, and Menominee. All right, the Menominee now are recognized. They have their own nation of people, but they're also recognized under the Potawatomi people too, which the Potawatomi were a group of High Plains Algonquins. Those were all in Illinois. The Miami, the Illini. I don't know why the city of Miami is named Miami. There were no Seminoles down there. And so this is a question from a while ago. Okay, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to read the question word for word. Something along the lines of the Aztecs, and what about the Aztecs, and this and that, and how can I say the Aztecs are primarily mestizo people when they're the base of the word Mexico is Mexica, which is, which they said are the, don't know if, I want to say, I think it was Mayans though, I want to say Aztecs, but I think it was Mayans, which Mayans, it wouldn't be the case. And not even for Aztecs, they were a base group of people for the Aztecs, basically where the Aztecs came, the people group the Aztecs came out of. So, Aztec is like Byzantine, it's a fairly modern term. It's actually later than the term Byzantine, because Byzantine came about 100 years earlier. Aztecs came probably around 1874, I think it was. It was actually a British guy who came up with that name. Not 100% sure on that, but okay, the origins of the Aztecs. Since I can't even look at the question or pull up another page, I'm not going to be able to saying, oh, well, a lot of people in Illinois are Roman Catholics, and the majority of them are Christians, so the Illini must have been Christians, right? No, it doesn't work like that. The Mexico were this group, basically the people that rose out of the Mexico we refer to as Aztecs, and that was the modern civilization in charge at the time when Cortez smacked into Mexico, into the Yucatan or Mesoamerica, or the isthmus between northern Mexico and will be Colombia. So this isthmus of people, and there wasn't such a distinction between what's now Belize, Guatemala, and southern Mexico. So you have